Hello, everyone, and welcome to Morning Tea Live. Happy Wednesday. So, against my better judgment or desire, I decided to come on here and chat about some post-election thoughts that I've been having because one, I think it would be so easy for me to just be like, I don't want to talk about this, everything sucks, and just wallow in a hole, which, sometimes we need to wallow in a hole, and that's okay, that's valid. And we actually have to look at what's actually happening. So none of this is new, and yet this is just the most present occasion of what has been happening in our systems, in our country, in our world since the dawn of time. So even though I don't really have a desire to talk about this because it's uncomfortable, it's frustrating, I wish we were having a very different type of morning tea live today, maybe a more celebratory one. I think it's really important to come back to what's in our power and to actually focus on what is in our control. So that is what inspired this today, is to really share how I view everything happening with this election through the lens of how I view everything in life, through the lens of trauma and nervous system healing, attachment wound healing, so that we can actually heal this world, not just in one election, but in a sustainable, grand macro type of way. Because when things like this happen, it's so easy to get zoomed in on the present moment of what's happening, right? And get really caught up in the details of this side and red versus blue and Democrats versus Republicans. And it's not actually about any of that. And all of that is a major distraction from what is actually happening at the root for all of us as human beings. So I'm going to share my perspective on why the result was the result it was, and how we can actually be with the emotions that come with that, because I know that there are many of us that are feeling many things today, and those emotions are sacred, they're valid, they are understandable, they make sense. And what do we do with all of that to move forward in a way where we don't just end up sinking into a deep hole of hopelessness, and can actually create the changes that we want to see in this life? So as always, let's just start with a few deep breaths to settle into this moment, to just notice what feels present for you in this present moment. So taking a big deep breath in and slowly release. And again, breathing in and release. And one more. And release. And just noticing any emotions, any sensations that are present. Taking a moment to just honor those, to feel those in your body, to breathe with them. Maybe sighing it out. And just anchoring into the safety of this moment. And when you're ready, you can start to come back. Okay. So life is about dialects and about opposite things that seem conflicting, coexisting. So we live in a world full of dialects. We live in a world full of opposites, right? And so just using the election as the most recent example of that, we have these two sides: Democrats versus Republicans, red versus blue, Trump versus Harris. Like, we are so brilliant at keeping this all or nothing, black or white, side versus side division in our culture, because that is what is familiar to our nervous systems. That is what is known. And as you guys know, I talk all the time about what we feel familiar with feels safe. What is known feels safe. And there's an expression of, we will choose a comfortable hell over an uncomfortable bliss any day, because that is what feels safe. So today I want to talk about how everything that just transpired actually makes perfect sense for where we're at in terms of this healing work of healing our nervous system, rewiring out of survival mode, rewiring out of scarcity, healing our inner child, reparenting them, feeling safe to relate to ourselves and the world and each other from a place of our authenticity, from our personal power, from our wisdom, from an open heart, from connection, from safety, from expansion, from abundance, and how everything that just happened is a reflection of what's happening within each of us as individuals. And this goes for no matter what side you are on, it's a external mirror of what's happening for all of us as individuals. So the first thing that I want to address in all of this is that we are all going to have feelings, whether the person who you wanted to win won or the person that you wanted to win didn't win. We are all going to have emotions today. And what happens when half of the country, more than half of the country, is beaming with joy and excitement, and the other half of the country, the half that I fall on, is feeling really heartbroken and disgusted and devastated. There can create this larger feeling of tension, of disconnection, of confusion, of wanting to project. It would be so easy for everyone who voted for Kamala to want to project their fear, their anger, their whatever feelings are happening in your body right now onto all the people that voted for Trump. And I get it. I have been in that position. I have felt angry. I have wanted to blame. I have wanted to project. But that actually does not help anything. And that actually is more of our inner child running the show. Because yes, your anger is valid. Yes, your fear is valid. Yes, your sadness is valid. All of those things are valid. Your feelings are always valid. It's not a question about your feelings being valid. Yes, your feelings make sense. Yes, your feelings are valid. I can validate that for you all day long if you need me to. And it's about what we choose to do with those feelings. So if we choose to relate to those emotions from a place of projecting onto the other meaning the group of people that we feel betrayed us, that we feel misunderstood by, it doesn't actually facilitate deeper understanding. It doesn't actually create deeper connection. And it further perpetuates a divide. So before doing this healing work, I very much would have related from this place of, I feel angry and I want to blame everyone who created this. And I would have never, ever looked at myself because I would have felt like I was in the right. And so because I'm in the right, I have a right to then be angry at everyone who did not vote the same way I did. But that actually does not help anything. And so I want you guys to really connect to, what do you actually desire? So if the person that you voted for had won, what would that have made you feel? What do you actually desire? You desire to feel heard. You desire to feel safe. You desire to feel protected. You desire to feel cared for. You desire to feel connected to each other, to yourself. And so what's happening right now is a larger scale version of what I witness every single day in this world, in my clients, in my loved ones, which is disconnection from the self, which is trauma perpetuating trauma. So again, it would be easy to just relate to all of this from a place of blame and anger and fear taking over. Now, there's a difference between feeling your fear, feeling your anger, feeling your sadness, feeling your feelings, and allowing them to take over and allowing your inner child to take over, where nothing actually changes. And then we just fight and scream and throw temper tantrums that nothing is changing. Now, another dialect of the human experience is that we have very little control over so many things, over most things, and yet we are so much more infinitely, innately powerful than we even begin to realize. Now, why is that important when it comes to something like this? Because we have to look at, if energy creates our lives, what is the energy of this result, of this election, of this state of the world right now? What is that actually reflecting back? because everything on a larger scale, remember, these things are created, these decisions are created by human beings that voted, human beings that showed up, human beings that have opinions about these things, right? There's no, like, it's not like God comes from the sky and is like, boom, we're going to divide you guys and this is what it is. It's like everything that we have a problem with right now in this moment, we all have played a role in creating that. And that can feel really hard to look at because, again, we feel like, okay, as long as we voted for quote unquote the right person, then we're absolved from looking at anything. But again, that takes us away and disconnects us from our power, which truly is the only thing that is in our control, is coming back to what's in our power. So everything happening right now, again, is nothing new. It's the trauma that lives within each and every one of us, the disconnection from ourselves that lives in each and every one of us, creating further disconnection from one another. And then what happens when people who have such deep unprocessed trauma and fear living in their bodies, what happens with that? They then have their inner child take over, trying to get emotional needs met, and they end up harming other people as a reflection of what is happening in their own internal world. So again, we love to villainize people. We love to pedestal people. We love to make a meaning. We attach meaning onto everything. This is good, this is bad. That's a very childlike way of thinking. And the way we need to shift our thinking is looking at, well, why is all this happening to begin with? Because essentially Trump represents on a large scale the disconnection, the self-sabotage, the lack of self-love and the lack of self-connection on a much larger scale. And then that's obviously incredibly harmful when you have someone who's ruling from a place of fear, because it then validates everyone else who is living from a place of fear. And that's really all this is that we are all terrified. No matter who you voted for, what side you're on, we all have so much fear as human beings. And that fear keeps us disconnected. And so what I've been doing differently this election is, instead of letting my inner child throw a temper tantrum and just blame and get angry at the people in my life who voted for Trump, I have very close people in my life that voted for Trump. I have been trying to lean in with a sense of curiosity. Because at the end of the day, yes, our anger is valid, but blaming and projecting and being angry at people is not actually going to fix any problems that we have. So it's looking at, where are you not leaning in with curiosity? Where are we not facilitating deeper understanding of what's actually happening? Because my perspective of what's happening for a lot of the people in my life who did vote for Trump is they have been reinforced through their fear. And so again, think about on a micro level where this shows up in your life. You don't like your boss at work, you got in a fight with your partner, you are witnessing something happening to someone else that brings up fear in you, and then you project that fear. Oh, maybe it's not that bad, or oh, maybe they didn't mean to say that, or oh, maybe it'll all work out, right? Like, how many times have you said that? It's because it feels terrifying to witness things happen that bring up fear in us, whether that's loss, whether that's change, right? Like, we are so resistant to change. And so if you think about how that shows up in the micro day-to-day moments of how fear takes over your life and how that's projected onto the loved ones that you have in your life, and we've all done this, we have all projected things. So the very things that we are hating Trump for, right? Being a convicted felon, being a rapist, being a person that relates through fear and hate, We have all experienced some flavor of that within our own selves. We have experienced not loving ourselves. We have experienced a lack of self-connection. When I look at Trump, I see a very, very terrified younger child who will do anything to get his needs met. And unfortunately, that has now resulted in some very incredibly harmful behaviors. We don't ever justify the behaviors. Please hear me correctly on that. We don't ever justify the behavior. Just like with my clients, when they do the shitty thing or project onto their partner, we don't validate the shitty behavior, whether it's on a micro level, a meso level, or a macro level. We look at what is the root of that behavior. And we can see that the root of any of our behaviors, because again, our country right now is mirroring back the fragmentation that exists within all of us, every single one of us. When you actually relate from a place of self-connection and an open heart, which happens when you process your trauma, the world doesn't look the way it looks right now. And so again, it's easy to want to project that and make everyone else the bad guy. And yes, we don't validate the shitty behavior. The behavior is not acceptable. But just stopping at the behavior and not actually looking at what's creating the behaviors that we don't want in our world, that getting to that deeper layer is what's going to create change from a place of grounded heart rather than fear. And so what I view happening is that Trump represents our nervous systems on a bigger macro level, fearing change. Why? Think about it. Think about the work that I talk to you guys about every single day, releasing addictive behaviors, releasing protectors. How many times have you gone back to the addiction, to the way of ruminating, to the way of thinking, to the way of relating to yourself, to the way of projecting? We have all done that. Why? Because it feels familiar, because it feels safer. So if we zoom out to a larger scale of what's happening right now, Trump represents everything that we are terrified of changing, but that we so desperately want to change. It's all fear. It's all fear. Does that make the behavior okay? No. But when we see it for what it is and see clearly for what it is, every single awful remark he's made about another human being, anyone who actually feels connected to themselves and to their heart, they don't make comments like that. And so I've been leaning into having conversations with people who voted for him. I actually just had I'm in the middle of having a DM conversation with this health coach who voted for Trump, and her whole mission is to help women and help women's health. And so obviously that piqued a curiosity in me of this person that has helped me and my health and my hormones tremendously. I've learned so much from her page. How is that aligning with voting for this person who has made it so clear that they are not prioritizing women's health? There's a disconnect there. And so the old me would have immediately unfollowed her. I probably would have had some anger and some judgment. And instead, I was like, what's actually happening? Because as human beings, we are brilliant. We are actually brilliant. None of us are innately stupid. And so if all of this disconnect is happening, where we say we want this thing, and yet we're engaging in all of this, then where is the disconnect? So I commented on her reel, and I just said, and I had to really take a breath, because normally I would comment and just say something, kind of pissy, like, ironic how a women's health coach is voting for someone who's not, prioritizing women's health. But I was like, that is perpetuating disconnection. That's not helping me understand. And same on election day. I had a conversation with a very close loved one who thou shall not be named for confidentiality, but a very close loved one who is a Trump supporter. And I said, as someone who is a woman in your life, who you love dearly, can I please just understand what happens? Like, what comes up for you when you think about this? And their response was very much from this place of, I am doing this because I love my family. I'm doing this because I genuinely feel in my whole heart that these policies are what's best for my family, while understanding that the person himself is an idiot who I don't like. And although I did not agree with some of the points that this person brought up, because again, when I look at this person, this is a person who I love very dearly, but who lives their whole life through fear. And so I can very much see how, oh, he genuinely is voting for Trump from a place of trying to protect his family. But his version of protecting his family is through a lens of seeing the world through fear. And it was a little bit similar, a little bit different with this current conversation where I left a comment. So going back to that story, I took a deep breath with what I actually wanted to say. And I said, that's not actually going to be helpful. What's going to be helpful? And I said, I would love to hear more, because she had commented on another person's thing saying, I'm doing this for my future daughters. And I responded and I said, I would love to hear more about this. From my perspective, voting for Trump is against women's health. And you're saying that you're doing it for your daughters. I would love to hear your perspective so that I can maybe better understand. And she immediately DM'd me, and this is someone who has like a very large account, so I wasn't really expecting a response, but she DM'd me right away. And she said, thank you so much for your comment. Thank you for like leaning in with curiosity rather than just, kind of making assumptions. And she said, I've seen in our DMs that we disagree on some things, because I have called her out for some very harmful language she has used towards the LGBTQ community. And she did not respond to that. And I'm going to include that in my response. But she basically had said that the vote was not even really for Trump. It was more for, why am I blanking right now? Like basically like a lot of his, why am I blanking on the name? I don't know. I'm blanking right now, but it was for a lot of his staff that she believes is going to help the health issues that she's most concerned about. So she doesn't necessarily view abortion as a healthcare issue. She views it as like an atopic pregnancy issue, as a lack of sex education issue, she listed a bunch of other things. Yes. Yeah, I think it was RFK that she was mentioning, because she was saying that he was very focused on a lot of the health stuff that she is most passionate about as a health coach. So those were just, she said a lot more, but those were just kind of some of the examples. And I didn't respond yet, because again, I have to really breathe and be intentional with how I respond. But the point in sharing that is, it's understanding that there's a reason for everything. So again, none of us are dumb innately. Sometimes we do stupid things. That's very different. It's understanding that we all want to feel safe. That is literally the motive behind everything we do as human beings. We want to feel safe, and we want to get our emotional needs met. So when she's bringing up things like, he's going to help us get the food dye out of our children's food, and a lot of the other, issues of, like, she mentioned the tap water, like actually developing clean water, which is going to be healthier for her future babies and all these things. And so what I'm hearing with all of that is she genuinely wants clean water, healthy food, and healthy children, right? And we can all agree on that. So again, when we can get to the root of what's happening, we actually can all agree on what we desire. We desire safety, we desire health, we desire connection, we desire love. We all have the same human needs. But it's understanding that every single person, through their own relationship with themselves, with the world, with their own bodies, with their own families, with all these systems that are at play, it's through their lived experience, they're viewing getting that need through a different way. So I'm saying, well, as you know, as a woman who cares about women's health and cares about the LGBTQ community and cares about just humans in general, that's why I voted for Kamala. And this same person is saying, I care about health. I also want safety. I also want this. And that's why I'm voting for Trump. Right? So you can see the disconnect. It's like we all want the same thing. We all have the same emotional needs. And yet, through our own lens of how we think we're going to get that need met, we then make those choices. Now, do I agree with a lot of the things she said? No, which is why I'm being intentional of how I want to respond, because some of the other comments she made were transphobic, of like, oh, I know that this administration will also protect men from going into women's bathrooms. And as someone who used to be a trainer in schools, I would go around and train staff and students on LGBTQ terms, communities, understanding people who are different than us. I can hear that there's just a lack of understanding. I don't think this person's a bad person. I think she genuinely was never educated on what it means to be a transgender person. Most of us were never educated on people who are different than us. And again, from a survival mode perspective, because we always look at things from the perspective of our nervous system trying to keep us safe, she's looking at it from a place of, oh, this is different. Oh, this is trying to take away my identity as a woman, right? I can hear the fear that lives in her. Now, does that reinforce behavior? No, but it helps me understand, oh, she views like, at least this is what I'm gathering. I don't know if this is exactly it, but again, this is where I'm trying to lean in with like, what's actually happening here? Okay, she's viewing transgender people having rights as somehow threatening to her own rights or her own identity. Now, how many of us have felt like if we related in a different way, or we opened our minds to something new, that it would go against our identity? And so I can understand that as someone who has shattered my identity and came into relationship with my true identity, it can feel really scary to start questioning the things that we were raised to associate and attach our identities to. And so that's really what it feels like is, oh, she doesn't understand how that actually doesn't have to threaten her sense of safety. And there's a disconnect there. And so from her being a person who's trying to be a parent, she's like, well, you know, if I view these people as men and they're going into a women's locker room, then that would put my daughter at risk, right? So she's viewing it from the lens of danger. Whereas I view it as, well, men wouldn't be going into a women's locker room if there's a locker room available for everyone. That's because that person that's going in is a woman, and she doesn't understand that just because you're in a man's body doesn't mean that you identify as a man, that you actually are a woman internally. So again, these things are a reflection of how people are so terrified of what they don't know. And it's the same for us on this side. We are fearful of people who would vote for Trump because we have trouble understanding it. And so then there's fear. And so our job is to lean in with curiosity, like what is actually happening? Like actually having, and again, you don't have to do this. I'm just challenging myself to have conversations with people who voted for him so that I can actually understand what this person is experiencing from a nervous system level, from a trauma perspective, from an inner child perspective, to actually be able to bridge some of that disconnect. Okay, I'm just going to catch up on some of these comments. Okay. But they're only obsessed with money and themselves and not their community as a whole. Well, and you have to think about that, right? If someone is only focused on themselves, you have to look at where is that person's nervous system at, right? They are in survival mode. They are not able to focus on other people because they are trying so desperately to get their needs met. Just like as a formerly anxiously attached woman, when I would project onto my partner, I wasn't concerned about their needs. I was literally in survival mode trying to get my needs met. Did that make the behavior of projecting onto them okay? No. That's why I did the healing work, so that I don't do that shit anymore. But it's understanding, okay, if someone's only focusing on that, why might they be focusing on that? And how can we help role model a different way of safety, a different way of relating? It seems like she lacks the effort to do any research or live amongst people who are not like her. Right. And that's the thing, is I'm going to respond in a way that's going to open an invitation for, can we look at what is all this mirroring for you? Right. Like, again, I've worked with a lot of people around the transgender community, and there's just a lot of fear, which is so, it's like cognitively, we know it's so silly, right? Like, why are we afraid of each other as human beings? But we all have unconscious biases like that. All of us, we all have conditioning that makes us afraid of certain people, right? Like right now, many of us are afraid of Trump. I don't actually feel afraid of Trump. I feel very deeply sad and sorry for him because I see him for who he is. But I don't actually feel afraid of him. But there are many people who do feel afraid of him, which makes sense. He's saying a lot of scary shit. And so it's looking at how all of us relate that way. We all relate in a way where we are scared of something new. We are scared of change. We are scared of something unknown. We are scared of, people who don't view things the same way. So just like she might be scared of people who are different than her, we are scared of people like her who are afraid of people, right? So like you can see that it's a mirror for all of us. And that helps bridge some of that disconnection to see people for what's actually happening rather than getting fixated on this surface level thing that they're scared of. It's like, okay, let's get to the root. The root is actual fear. What are you actually afraid of? For her, I think she's afraid of it affecting her identity. And it's like, you can still be a woman and also let other people be a woman. So I'm going to have to be very intentional about how I respond to that. She's coming from a place where the world isn't safe. Right. Right. Like, yeah, the world doesn't feel safe to any of us. Right. And so everyone's going to try and get that sense of safety in the way that they know how, in the way that's most familiar to them, in a way that will help them feel safe. Right. Like someone will attack her in the bathroom. Exactly. Who else would be like, why else would someone be afraid of having bathrooms where all genders could go in? Right. I mean, think about it. Even me, even you, even the next door neighbor, Susie. I don't have a next door neighbor, Susie. I mean, maybe I do. Like, even anyone. This applies to everyone. If we're used to, let's say we go to Equinox Gym and there's a women's bathroom and a men's bathroom, blah, blah. I went to a very progressive grad school where we had bathrooms for everyone and it was amazing. But again, any change, no matter how positive and incredible and how much we want that change. Any change is a change. So our nervous system, I mean, this is the work I do with my clients around their expansion. Like, oh, you say you want $1 million. Okay, I'll give you $1 million right now. Your nervous system's probably going to contract. So no matter how amazing the change is, right now, this world is mirroring back how terrified we are. The fact that we would rather have someone like Trump over a woman because we've never had a woman be president. And that's something I was so excited for. I was like, oh my God, it's about fucking time. Right? So it's like, I was so excited for that. And I am excited for that when the day comes, because I know this is not the end. I know the day will come. But even that, people are terrified of because it's new. We've never had that before. So again, when we can look at all these things as what is it mirroring within us? Because it's so easy to want to go to the place of I'm right and they're wrong and da-da-da, but we are all too brilliant for that. We are all so brilliant that if we look at it from a perspective of everyone's nervous system is literally doing what it knows as safety, and we can all agree on that because we all have nervous systems and we're all human, we can start to see things for what they actually are. So this is the work, like the work of turning inward. And what is this bringing up in me? So for the Democratic side today, I've seen a lot of posts that are really slippery slopes into getting stuck into victimhood, getting stuck into inner child taking over and wanting to just crawl in a hole. Now, I understand that, but that's not actually feeling your feelings, and that's not actually going to help anything. So yes, feel your feelings. Yes, take time to grieve. Yes, take time to be heartbroken at the state of the world. And also use it as a mirror and reflect of what's actually happening in you. Is there a younger part of you that was looking for one person to fix everything? Because that is your inner child. I love Kamala. I wanted her so badly. I was so disappointed. But I also knew that she's not going to be able to just fix everything because we have to take responsibility for that. Each and every one of us. We are the people that make up the larger scale of the world. So if every single person then just relies on one person to fix everything, you're absolving yourself from the responsibility of being a powerful human in this world. You're absolving yourself from being an adult. And it goes the same way. If we now look at this person, Trump, and say, oh, now everything's ruined, we are giving our power away. Now, yes, are there very real things that we can feel afraid of? Sure. But that's literally the whole point. The whole point is he is operating through fear. That is how dictatorships, that is how wars, that is how fascists, that is how all of these people operate, is through fear. And so if we then operate through, I'm just going to give all my power away and be afraid of this person who's literally just a human being. He is so deeply traumatized, so deeply traumatized. I don't even know what his childhood was like. I don't even want to know what his childhood was like. It has to be that bad. Like there is a deeply wounded inner child that lives in that man. And I feel sorry. I feel sadness for him. I cannot even imagine the amount of wounding and trauma that exists in a human being to act the way that he acts. And that goes for every past dictator, Hitler. I mean, there's a million others. Every person that causes harm to another person. And that's in the micro day-to-day. Where are we causing harm on each other? Where are we not looking at our role in things? Where are we trying to grasp for places of power and control to feel in control? Because that's all this is. That's all this is there's a deeply wounded inner child in a grown man's body who's desperately trying to feel safe and in control and is abusing that power because he's not actually in his power. And so again, having someone like Kamala, who is much more in her power, but is still human, It's not going to absolve us from us being in our power. So we all have that responsibility to look at, where are we giving our power away? Where are we not actually coming home to looking at what all of this is mirroring in us? Because the posts that I've been seeing of like, just fucking forget about it all and just stay in bed and eat spaghetti all day, it's not actually you being in your power. And that's not actually going to help anything. And that is a little part of you, a little young part of you, sweet little you, whatever your name is, little Susie, little Sally, whatever your name is, little you who's in there, who's like, oh, mommy Kamala is going to fix it all, or daddy Trump is going to ruin it all, right? Like, no one has that much power. We all have power. We all have so much power. And it starts with you looking at, what is this mirroring in you? Because this, we all have a part in. All of us create a world that is this traumatized, this addicted, this disconnected. Every time you disconnect from yourself, you are perpetuating a disconnected society. Every time you choose to connect home to yourself, every time you then perpetuate more connection in our society. If every single person was connected to themselves, stopped binging TV, stopped binge eating, stopped numbing with alcohol, with weed, with porn, with sex, with dating, with video games, with overworking, with overthinking, with all of our protectors. If every single person fucking meditated and got still with themselves and felt their emotions and reparented their inner child and rewired their nervous system out of survival mode, this would not be the world. So when I tell you that this work is literally the foundation of everything, that is what that means. Your nervous system creates your life. So if every single nervous system creates your own respective life, imagine every single person's nervous system on a grand scheme. If every single person's nervous system was rewired out of survival mode, which means you're connecting home to yourself every day, which means you are looking at your own shit, because we all have our own shit. And that's the main thing we need to be looking at. We need to stop looking at everyone. Oh, this is what's wrong with him. This is what's wrong with them. It's not about blame. It's not about finding fault in other people. It's about looking at, what is this bringing up in you? And using that as what you can do. Because if every single person did that, we would not be in the position we are in today. Every time you choose to meditate rather than scroll the news, every time you choose to take deep breaths instead of project, every time you choose to come back to the safety of this present moment rather than outsourcing your safety, that is you connecting home to you. And if every single person connected home to themselves, we would not be in the position we are in today. And when we can start to look at, every single person is just trying to feel safe. Every single human is just trying to feel safe. We feel safe by being scared of the other. We feel safe by wanting to be angry and project that anger onto the other side, rather than actually trying to understand the other side, because we don't even want to be associated with the other side because we have so much attachment to our identity. I don't attach labels onto my identity. I don't need to say, I'm Democrat, I'm Republican, I'm this, I'm that. That's just attaching labels onto your identity. What if instead of grasping onto that identity for dear life, or that label as if that is your identity, which it's not, what if instead we got curious with one another? What if instead we actually leaned in with, okay, we're not stupid, so there's a reason why this is happening. There's always a reason. And most of the time, that reason is because we're all fucking terrified. And no, we can't control other people looking at their fear, but you can control you looking at your fear. And if this has created fear in you, you have a responsibility to tend to that fear, to feel that fear, to come back to your motherfucking power. Because you letting the fear take over is you perpetuating the very thing that you voted against, because that is what just won the election, is fear. Because yes, I hear, I am listening. I'm listening to why people voted for Trump. I understand that they are just trying to feel safe. I understand that they are feeling like this is, the way to make America healthy again. That's a slogan that's going around, make America healthy again. There's nothing more I want than to make this country healthy again. Now, we have different views on what that looks like. But if we can reach some common ground of, yes, we all want this country to be healthier. Yes, we all want this country to be more peaceful. Yes, we all want this country to be more connected. Then we're standing on common ground. And the way that we do that is encouraging each other and mirroring for each other. Well, how can you start creating that feeling that you are so desperately wanting to create in the macro? How can you create that right now in this present moment in your own body? Because if every single person did that, that would then become our new norm. That would then become the macro. And sure, there's always going to be differences and disagreements of how the best way to go about that is. Okay, we want to be healthy. So this person is saying she wants the food dyes out of the food. Yeah, of course. I want clean water too. I want food dyes to be removed. Absolutely. I agree with all of that. Now, the best way to go about that, we may disagree, and that's okay, but at least we can start finding some common ground. And from common ground, we can then begin to view each other as human beings. Because at the end of the day, all the people that you're hating today are human beings who are fucking terrified. And again, if you relate to the fear the same way that the other is relating to the fear, then that's hypocritical. Then you can't actually be mad at anyone but yourself, because you're relating in the way that's perpetuating the very thing that you don't want to perpetuate. So it starts with curiosity, with getting to the root of, this is a just bigger scale of everyone being disconnected from themselves, which then results in a larger disconnect among one another. That is literally the root of all of this, is disconnection. It's, I'm just going to protect myself and I don't care about you because I'm terrified and I'm in survival mode. But if we can just start to see each other, I see that you're afraid. I see that you voted for him because you want the water to be clean. I want the water to be clean too. I understand that. Do I agree with you voting for him? No, but I can understand you want the water to be clean because I want that too. Right? It's like, these are the entry points for the conversation. Someone that doesn't view abortion as healthcare, let's get curious around that. What were your views growing up? What were you taught about abortion? Right? There's so much black and white thinking. People think that pro-abortion means that people love abortion. No one fucking loves abortion. No, it just means that we want to have the choice for it if needed. Does that mean that we should rely on abortions instead of actually providing actual sex education in this country? Of course not. I don't agree with that. So again, like, a lot of these things we actually agree on. We're just fixated on different points, right? Like, if we all agree that we all need sex education, but that still, regardless, women should have choices over their bodies, we can all agree on that. Now, the way in which you get to that, right? The Democratic side is going to be fixating more on, yeah, but abortion is healthcare. And the Republican side is going to be fixated more on, well, sex education is actually better healthcare than abortions, right? None of it's black or white. Abortions are not the answer for everything. Yes, we need sex education. Yes, we need to take responsibility. Yes, we need to educate ourselves on our bodies and our hormones and our health, and like actually get the education we need. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't have the choice to get an abortion if we actually need one. Should that right be abused? No. And this shit used to piss me off. Like, when I would have friends in college that wouldn't use, protection, or like, we're just very careful. Oh, I'm just going to get an abortion. That shit's fucking traumatizing. I fortunately have never had to experience it, but I know that that shit's traumatizing. How could it not be? So am I in favor of people abusing that? No, I'm in favor of educating ourselves. Does that mean we shouldn't have the option to do that safely? Of course not. We need that option. So again, all of this is the gray middle. And when we each lean in from these extremes, because no extreme is actually good, and we can lean into the middle, we can actually start to find some common ground of realizing we all actually want the same things. The root of all of it is the same. We all want the same things. We just have to start looking at where are we projecting our own fear into making those things happen in a way that we perceive as safe rather than what's going to be beneficial for all involved. That's really how we start to shift this. When survival mode is in full on survival mode gear, it's like, I'm just thinking about myself. But when it's from an open heart and from a place of connection, it's how can we all feel safe? How can we all feel understood? How can we all feel protected? How can we all feel cared for? And that starts with looking at what all of this is mirroring in each of us, because everything that I saw this week with this election was Trump is the villain because he is literally mirroring and representing all of the fear that people are living through, all of the lack of self-connection that people are living through, and therefore all of the lack of connection to the other humans that we are living through. And that literally applies to all of us. There's not one of us that's exempt from this. I can't sit here and be like, oh, I voted for Kamala, so what's happening right now? Oh, I'm just going to wash my hands of it. No, we all have a role. This is literally what makes me get up every day. We all need to heal our nervous systems. We all need to look at ourselves. We all need to face ourselves. And so just like when you are, talking shit to your friends about that guy that, you're feeling salty about, is that what the kids say, salty? Just like you want them to validate your stories, you want them to validate your victimhood, you want them to validate your need for validation around it, you want them to validate he's such an asshole, right? But are you having friends that help you look at your role in things? Because that's what's happening on a larger scale. Trump is validating all of the fears, all of the beliefs that the majority of America apparently still has. And so rather than looking at themselves of why do they have those beliefs, they're now then just all validating the bullshit stories. And so we can't be mad at that if we're also doing the same thing, because the micro creates the macro. So if you're not looking at your stuff and you're having someone validate your trauma response, oh, it's okay to control that. Oh, it's okay to just stay overthinking in your head. No, it's not. Oh, it's okay to just binge watch 500 episodes of that. No, it's not. It's not okay. So why is it okay for you to engage in your addictions and you're in trauma, but then when it comes to a large scale of this, we're all shocked that the result is fear and trauma? It starts with each and every one of us. So that is what you can do if you want to actually create change, sustainable change, is looking at how your micro moments of relating to yourself and relating to your trauma is perpetuating a larger scale of what we don't want. It's no different. And yes, it's easy for us to judge Trump validating the fear and the hatred that exists in our nation. That feels safer than that being a mirror for where are we doing that in our own day-to-day lives? Where are we seeking someone to validate our own bullshit? Where are we seeking that validation for someone to be like, yeah, it's okay for you to just keep relating from an activated inner child? No, it's not. If it's not okay for him to do it, why is it okay for you to do it? None of it's okay. None of it's okay. And that is the best thing that you can do if you actually want to change this. Stop spending your energy hating on someone else, because that's perpetuating the very thing that you are hating him for, and start looking at yourself. And yes, feel your feelings always, but look at what is this bringing up for you and come home to your motherfucking power. because we have so much power. It doesn't actually matter who the fuck is president, because if we all did this work of facing ourselves, facing the parts of ourselves we've been running away from, facing that stored fear that's lived in our bodies for so long, that's now controlling our very behavior. Trust me, if Trump were my client and we were processing his trauma, he would not be saying or doing half the shit he's doing. He's no different. He's just a human being who has severe trauma and is doing really not okay things. And we can all relate to that, at least on some level. We don't want it to get to his level. We want to work on it now to prevent people like him getting to that level of power. This is how we do it. We prevent. It's prevention work. And now we're now past prevention with like, we are like in a dire state to do this. So every time you are leaking your energy of frantically trying to save the world, tune back in to yourself. Look in a mirror. By looking in the mirror, you are saving the world. That is how you can save the world. You bleeding out with fear and frenetic energy and scrolling the news all day and going in a deep hole, that is not actually going to do shit. So yes, feel your feelings. Yes, take today to be angry, to do whatever you got to do. But then come back to, if this is a representation of what's happening within each of our own bodies, divide, fragmentation, repression, living through fear, where are you relating that way? And how can you start relating differently? And if you need support, obviously I am here. So we are at the hour. I don't even think I was going to talk about this for an hour, but apparently I am. If only we could if only we could all heal our nervous systems, but we can. We absolutely can. We all need to. It's not even a choice anymore. Like, you guys, if you want change, this is what you have to do. Like, this is why I always say to people, like, my work is not a niche. It's not like, oh, nervous system healing, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is literally the world. We all are human. This is the human experience. We have a nervous system. The nervous system wants to feel safe. Our inner child / nervous system, because it's one and the same, because our nervous systems were wired in childhood, will find a way of feeling safe through getting those needs met. How do we get those needs met? However the fuck we can get them met. And sometimes we will do shitty things to get them met because that is our body going into survival mode. Would you be mad at a 5-year-old for finding a way of getting their needs met? No. So why would you shame yourself for that? And we have to have radical accountability that we are responsible for how we get those needs met. It's not okay to get them met in ways that harm other people. And the more that you can do that on a micro level, the more that will shift the macro. So let me know any final thoughts, feelings, questions. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, I think in my head I had like 3 main points. Feel your feelings, get curious, come back to your power. Feel your feelings, get curious, come back to your power. Yeah, that's really it in a nutshell. You're so welcome. I hope it all lands well. I know this stuff is not easy, and I promise. Interested to see how you respond to the health coach. Yeah, I'm gonna have to sit with that one because, like, I can't argue. Like, yeah, of course I want clean water. Yeah, of course I want, people to stop fucking poisoning children's food. Of course I want that. Of course I believe we need sex education. So I'm going to lead with the things that I agree on. And then I'm going to do a little curiosity around the things that I'm hearing are through fear. Guys, we have so much work to do. But when we think about it on a grand scale, none of this is new. It's deeper layers. Just like if you have been doing this healing work with me, you know that it's not that your inner child won't ever come up again. It's not that your abandonment wound won't ever get triggered again. It's going to get triggered again. It's deeper layers of it. So when I woke up and I saw the news, I was like, okay, I thought we were in a place where maybe, just maybe, we would be ready for the new change. But clearly, because I trust the universe and the universe is always perfect, if this is happening for all of our highest growth and all of our highest good and all of our highest soul journey lessons, then this must be happening because there's a deeper level of healing to do. So let's fucking do it this time so we don't need another version of this, so that we can actually have a different result next time. This is on all of us to create a different result. We have to relate differently to ourselves, to each other. Stop perpetuating the divide, because both sides have valid points. Both sides are human beings. There is so much more common ground than we even realize. There's so much more amongst us that are similar than is actually different. We're just fucking terrified. So lean in, get honest with yourself, turn in. How do you keep testing the universe? Trusting the universe when life keeps testing you. Because you have to trust that the reason why life keeps testing you is because the universe is perfect and the universe is the best parent we'll ever have. And the universe is giving us everything we need to help you get to what you want. So the universe thinks that we need another Trump presidency to get us to where we want. Because again, if we're still relating from this place of Kamala is going to save everything and we're not actually looking at ourselves, it just enables people to stay stuck. So clearly the universe was like, these people are still not, these humans down on Earth School are still not seeing the lesson. What is the lesson here? You have to ask yourself that with everything in life. Why is this showing up in my world? What is the lesson? So what are the lessons that we all need? Because our energy attracted another Trump presidency. Now, I know you might not like hearing that, but that's the truth. Our energy creates our lives. Our energy attracts everything. So if our collective energy attracted Trump as our president, what do we got to learn? There's clearly some learning left to do. If there wasn't learning left to do, then the result would have been very different. So when you can look at life from how is this happening for my learning? What am I needing to learn? And how can I actually use this not to go into victimhood, to feel your feelings? Yes. But then how do I learn from this? What is this mirroring back to me? What's happening in my own energy that's creating the worst fear? Sometimes our energy unconsciously creates our worst fear so that we can face it and realize we are still fucking powerful. We are still safe, and trusting that every unique soul has its own unique soul journey. None of our soul journeys are going to look the same. We all have lessons to learn. And so if the universe keeps testing you, it's because you are meant to start looking at how is this happening for me, and relating through the faith and the trust that the universe always gives us what we need. So clearly the universe thought we needed this. Trump is our president, which just doesn't even feel real to say, to get to what we want. If we want connection, we want unity, we want everyone to feel safe, that's not going to happen if we continue to outsource our safety and our power to other people and continue hating the other side. Because then what's going to happen? Oh, we're going to have 4 years of temporary relief of, oh, the Democrat is president. Okay, now we can breathe. But then what happens with the next Republican president? You guys are all going to be in a frenzy again? That's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. So clearly, if we want connection, like I want you guys to write out, what do you want in this country? What do you want in your own body? How do you want to feel? Write it out and start cultivating that within yourself every single day. And when you learn that lesson of stop outsourcing your power and your safety and start connecting to yourself so you can connect to others, so we can all bridge this gap of disconnection and stop living through disconnection, living through fear, living through addiction, then maybe we'll all fucking learn our lesson and we'll have a person that doesn't represent the fragmentation and the fear, but will then attract a president that reflects the love and the connection that exists within each of us that we are so disconnected from. So it actually all makes sense, because what do I teach you guys every day? Energy, nervous system, trauma. We attract the lessons we need to get to what we want. So it actually all makes sense that this is mirroring back that we have some work to do, and we can do this. I believe in us. I believe in you. Start with you. Start with you, start with you. Shut out the noise of everything else, come back to you. If everyone did that, healing domino effect. All right, I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you soon. Mwah.